Hey! This is Mr. Poddable. In the darkest corners of the city, where the shadows twist and the stakes are life and death, I'm thrust into the heart of a ruthless game. As the night unfolds, I confront my most dangerous challenge yet, a desolate warehouse, a chilling message, and the final round of a deadly game that threatens everything I hold dear. With Emily's fate hanging in the balance, I must navigate a maze of treachery and danger. Welcome to the Shadow Games, where survival is just the beginning. The tension was palpable as I stood at the edge of the city, where the concrete jungle gave way to the untamed wilderness. The air was thick with anticipation, a heavy silence hanging over the darkened landscape. This wasn't the city I knew, it was a place where the rules were different, where shadows moved with intent and the line between hunter and prey was blurred. The night had always been my ally, a shroud that concealed my movements, but tonight it felt different. The darkness was alive, pulsing with a sinister energy that sent shivers down my spine. I could feel eyes on me, watching, waiting for me to make my move. My heart raced, but I couldn't afford to show fear. Not here, not now. The message had been clear: if I wanted answers, I had to come alone. No backup, no safety net, just me against the unknown. The cryptic instructions led me to this remote location, far from the safety of the urban sprawl. Every step I took felt like I was walking deeper into a trap, but I had no choice. Emily's fate was on the line, and I was willing to risk everything to find her. The old warehouse loomed ahead, a hulking, derelict structure that had long since been forgotten by the city. Its windows were shattered, and the walls were covered in graffiti, but the building radiated an eerie power. This was the place where the game would be played, a game of life and death, with Emily as the prize. As I approached the entrance, the door creaked open on rusty hinges. My hand instinctively went to the concealed weapon at my side, but I forced myself to remain calm. This was a test, and I couldn't afford to fail. Inside, the warehouse was a labyrinth of shadows and echoes. The flickering light of a single bulb cast distorted shapes on the walls, making the space feel even more disorienting. I moved cautiously, my senses on high alert, ready for anything. "Jack." The voice came from the darkness, low and menacing. It echoed off the walls, making it impossible to pinpoint its source. I froze, my hand tightening on my weapon. "Who's there?" A figure stepped out of the shadows, dressed in black from head to toe. Their face was obscured by a mask, but I could feel their eyes boring into me, cold and calculating. "You're not supposed to be here," the voice said, dripping with contempt. "This isn't your game." "I make my own rules," I shot back, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. "Where's Emily?" The figure chuckled, a sound that sent chills down my spine. "Emily? She's part of the game now, just like you. But this isn't about her anymore, Jack. This is about you." Before I could react, the lights in the warehouse flared to life, blinding me. I staggered back, my hand instinctively going up to shield my eyes. When my vision cleared, I saw that I was surrounded. Dozens of figures, all dressed in black, their faces hidden behind masks, encircled me. Each of them held a weapon, and their intent was clear. My mind raced, calculating my options. There was no way I could fight my way out of this, not alone. But I wasn't about to go down without a fight. "Welcome to the Shadow Games," the leader said, their voice echoing ominously. "Survive, and you might just get your answers. Fail, and you'll join the shadows." I didn't wait for them to make the first move. With a burst of adrenaline, I lunged at the nearest figure, my weapon flashing in the dim light. The room erupted into chaos as the fight began, a brutal, desperate struggle for survival. Blows landed, weapons clashed, and the sound of combat filled the air. I fought with everything I had, driven by the need to find Emily, to uncover the truth. But the odds were against me, and I could feel my strength waning. Just when I thought I couldn't go on, a new sound cut through the din, a sharp, piercing whistle. The figures around me froze, their weapons lowering as if on command. "Enough," the leader said, stepping forward. "You've proven yourself, Jack. But the game is far from over." I was breathing hard, my body bruised and battered, but I refused to show weakness. "Where's Emily?" I demanded, my voice hoarse. The leader tilted their head, considering me. "She's closer than you think. But you'll have to play the next round to find out." Before I could respond, the lights went out, plunging the warehouse into darkness once more. When they flickered back on, the figures were gone, leaving me alone in the empty space. I sank to my knees, exhaustion washing over me. The game was far from over, and I knew that the next round would be even more dangerous. But I had no choice. I had to keep going, had to find Emily, no matter the cost. As I rose to my feet, a new resolve hardened within me. I was no longer just a player in this twisted game, I was going to win it. But first, I had to survive the shadows. The next few days were a blur of preparation. I knew that if I was going to survive whatever came next, I needed to be ready. The shadow games were unlike anything I had faced before, a twisted test of skill, wits, and endurance. But this time, it wasn't just about survival. It was about finding Emily, and getting the answers that had eluded me for so long. I spent hours poring over maps, trying to anticipate where the next round would take place. The city had become a chessboard, each street and building a potential battleground. I contacted every resource I had, calling in favors, gathering intelligence. I needed to know who I was up against, and what their endgame was. But information was scarce. The shadow games were shrouded in mystery, known only to those who had played, and survived. Every lead I followed seemed to dead end in the same place, nowhere. It was as if the city itself was conspiring to keep the truth hidden from me. The frustration was maddening. I was so close, yet still so far from finding Emily. Every minute that passed felt like another lost opportunity, another step further away from her. But I couldn't afford to lose focus. Not now. Then, just as I was about to give up hope, a message arrived. This time, it wasn't a cryptic text or a threatening note, it was a video, sent to my phone in the dead of night. My hands shook as I pressed play, dread coiling in my stomach. The video was shaky, as if filmed on a handheld camera. It showed an empty street, dimly lit by a flickering street lamp. I recognized the location immediately. It was near the old factory on the outskirts of town, a place I had been to many times before. But there was something off about the scene, something that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. Then, the camera panned to the right, and my blood ran cold. Emily was there, tied to a chair in the middle of the street. Her face was bruised, her eyes wide with fear. She struggled against her bonds, but it was clear she was too weak to free herself. I felt a surge of anger, mixed with a sickening sense of helplessness. I wanted to reach through the screen, to tear apart the people who had done this to her. But I knew it wasn't that simple. This was a trap, and I had to play it smart. The camera zoomed in on Emily's face, and then a voice spoke, distorted, mechanical, impossible to identify. "Jack," the voice said, "the game continues. Come to the factory if you want to see her alive. But be warned, this is the final round." The video ended abruptly, leaving me staring at the screen in shock. My mind raced with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. This was it, the endgame. The final round of the Shadow Games, and it was all on me. I had to get to the factory, but I couldn't just walk into the trap they had set for me. I needed a plan, and I needed it fast. There was no time to call for backup, no time to think of every possible outcome. I had to trust my instincts, and hope that they would lead me to victory. I grabbed my gear and headed out into the night, my heart pounding in my chest. The streets were eerily quiet, as if the city itself was holding its breath. I moved quickly, keeping to the shadows, my senses on high alert. When I arrived at the factory, I could feel the tension in the air, thick and oppressive. The building loomed before me, its broken windows like dark eyes staring down at me. I knew that once I stepped inside, there would be no turning back. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door, my grip tight on the handle of my weapon. The interior was dark, the only light coming from the moon filtering through the cracked windows. I could hear the faint sound of dripping water, the creak of old machinery. And then, I saw her, Emily, still tied to the chair, but now she was alone in the middle of the factory floor. My heart leapt in my chest, relief flooding through me. But I couldn't afford to let my guard down. Not yet. I approached cautiously, scanning the area for any sign of a trap. But there was nothing, just the empty factory, and Emily. "Jack," she whispered, her voice hoarse and weak. "You came." "Of course I did," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I'm going to get you out of here." I reached for the ropes binding her, but before I could untie them, a loud click echoed through the room. I froze, every muscle in my body tensing. "You should have listened," the distorted voice said, this time coming from a speaker hidden somewhere in the factory. "The game isn't over yet, Jack." Suddenly, the floor beneath us began to shake, the ground trembling as if something massive was moving beneath it. I grabbed Emily and pulled her to her feet, trying to get her to safety. But the floor was collapsing, crumbling away into a dark abyss that seemed to stretch on forever. "Run," I shouted, dragging Emily with me as the floor gave way. We sprinted towards the exit, the sound of falling debris and collapsing concrete echoing around us. But the exit was blocked, a wall of rubble sealing us inside. We were trapped. "Jack," Emily gasped, her voice trembling. "What do we do?" I looked around frantically, my mind racing for a solution. There had to be another way out, some hidden exit that we hadn't seen. But the factory was collapsing around us, and time was running out. And then, I saw it, a small, narrow tunnel leading out of the factory, barely visible through the dust and debris. It was our only chance. "Through there," I yelled, pointing to the tunnel. "Go, now." We scrambled towards the tunnel, the ground shaking beneath us as the factory continued to collapse. I could hear the voice laughing, a cold, mocking sound that sent chills down my spine. We made it to the tunnel just as the last of the floor gave way, plunging the factory into the abyss below. I pulled Emily through the narrow passage, the walls closing in around us as we crawled towards the faint light at the other end. Finally, we emerged into the open air, gasping for breath as we stumbled out into the night. The factory was gone, swallowed by the darkness, and we were alone in the wilderness. But we were alive. And for now, that was enough. Emily clung to me, her body trembling with exhaustion and fear. I held her close, my heart still racing from the adrenaline. We had survived the Shadow Games, but I knew that this was just the beginning. There were still so many questions, so many secrets left to uncover. And I wasn't going to stop until I had all the answers. But for now, all that mattered was that Emily was safe. We had won this round, but the game was far from over. And as we stood there, alone in the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were still watching, waiting for the next move. But whatever came next, I was ready. The Shadow Games weren't over yet. As the factory crumbles around us and the shadows of the Shadow Games retreat into the night, Emily and I find ourselves gasping for breath under the open sky. We've escaped the clutches of a twisted game, but the victory feels hollow. The factory's destruction is just a prelude to what's to come. The shadows are still lurking, their sinister gaze fixed on us as we catch our breath. The game isn't over, and neither is the fight. With new questions and hidden dangers awaiting, I'm prepared to face whatever comes next. The Shadow Games have shown me the depths of danger, but they've also ignited a fire within me. I won this round, but the real battle is just beginning. Thanks for listening, stay curious, stay awesome, and as always, keep it poddable. See you in the next episode.